Good morning, everybody. This is Paul Crammy. Welcome to our session today. What we're going to talk about today is the finished goods and finished goods inventory. That's a fancy word for saying you're going to put you're going to price stuff at based on one premise. Going to put that into inventory, so to speak. And then the customer will request pieces out of that inventory on a week by week, month by month, periodic basis. So you're pulling stuff into, you're putting it in, and you're pulling it back out. That's the basic essence of what our topic is today. There was a couple of questions that came up on Thursday, our Tuesday session, that I just want to quickly reply to the best I can. One was on purchase orders. The initial, there's a choice of three, in essence, three statuses: requested, approved, and ordered. And the question was whether there was a way to make one of those the default, such as ordered. And I've looked in all of the different setup places, and I could find no evidence that there is a place to change that default. The consulting team might have better insight if you want to explore that a little bit further. The other question that came up that I didn't have time to look into deeply, and that was the question that was a very, very good one about how does one start with getting their starting inventory of parts into control. And intuitively, it just seems to me that there should be a way to do that using kind of a bogus PO, so to speak, that would populate all of your available parts, in the system as a starting balance. But again, I would defer to consulting staff, for more specifics. I'm going to change my view of what we're looking at, and we're going to get started. I think everybody should be seeing control, right?
We can.
All righty. So just kind of in a general sense to kind of get things kicked off, just a couple questions. Who can use finished goods and finished goods inventory? Who can use that feature? Basically, it's available to all users. The use of the finished goods inventory is desirable. Situations where you want to produce pricing based on one set of criteria, and then disperse that material or those goods kind of after the fact or on a piecemeal basis, but based on the full spectrum of the quantities and sizes and things like that. What factors may indicate that using the finished goods feature, would be helpful? In some of my other consulting work, I frequently work with customers, and I find that when we're exploring things, that there are many orders occasionally that I find that have a negative gross margin. And that when we talk about that, it's quite common that the cause of it is that they create an order or an estimate, so to speak, based on a certain quantity, and that produces the price, the target per piece price. Well, then when it comes time for the customer to really order, a lot of times the people will use as a practice to clone that estimate and simply change the quantity, override change the quantity, but keep the same unit price. In other words, they're forcing the system to use the unit price from that estimate. And if they don't change the quantities and stuff, it's going to distort that gross margin. And using the finished goods and the finished goods inventory is a means of addressing that specific thing, where you to avoid getting a form of distorted perspective of your gross margins on an order by order basis. So what's the process for using finished goods in finished goods inventory? It's a two-step process. The first step is, you're going to hear me referring to putting. So the first step is putting goods into finished goods. The second step is pulling goods from finished goods inventory. So you're the customer comes in. I said they anticipate buying X number of this particular product with this material, laminated, whatever the case may be, and then you put that into inventory, and then you associate a purchase order number to it. That's the common denominator. So you create the estimate or create the order, tell it that we'll walk through and see how you do that, and tell it that it's going to be going into finished goods inventory. When you're done, you put a PO number on it and then save it. That order goes in with a zero cost and a zero price because of the use of a finished goods product or pricing template. But that establishes the unit cost, and it establishes the unit price. Then second step is, I want to pull so many items out of that inventory for that specific purchase order number. And that there's been a part created that has the cost in it, the unit cost, and it has the unit price. So if you say, I'm going to pull 100 items out, it uses the predefined cost and the predefined unit price. So progressively, as that customer orders things going along the line, it's all going to be based on what you initially put into the purchase, into the finished goods. Now, again, we'll see how the common denominator that keeps those two together, it turns out to be the PO number. Now, when we get into the details, we have to look at this because there's slight differences between the control databases. You've heard reference probably to V3, which is the current one, and the V2, which was the predecessor. They both have the same basic functionality, many similarities on how they work, but there are some subtle differences. So because of that, I will illustrate the concepts in both versions. So putting items into finished goods differs, as I said, by the database. So first thing, you need to make sure that you know what version of the database that you have. So we're going to go up to setup, and then we're going to go to pricing setup, and we're going to go to all pricing. Then over on the first column, we're going to choose user constants right here. And there are two entries in here that between the two databases. Look for product info, which is this one. And this tells me that I'm on version 3, V3. Okay. Now the equivalent of this product info in the V2 database, it has a unique name. It's called data set version. And if you find that entry, then you know that you have V2. And then if you look at the value, there's a field in there called value FX, and that'll tell you what precise version. For example, the one that I'll be showing is 2.90. So again, there's subtle differences between the two databases. Now I'm in V3, and that's where we will start, and then walk through a couple of things, and then I'll flip over to V2. And then as we progress along, I'll come back and finish up in V3 again. So to begin, we're going to walk through the process of putting stuff into inventory using V3. So there's 3 steps, as I mentioned. You're going to create an order for the items that you want to put into inventory. You're going to add those actually add them to inventory, and then you're going to assign a PO number, and that's going to provide the tracking mechanism between what you're putting into and what you're pulling from the database. Now in V3, any V3 product can be used to add items to inventory. There's an actual product. This is, I think it's named Add to Finished Goods. That can be used. The important things to kind of understand is that for some, but not all products, that is already, there's an association that's already there. So what we have to look at is, I'm going to open up a product here. And I'm just going to pick on digital prints. The equivalent of this in the V2, when we get to it, is a wide format print. One of the things that we have to kind of comment on is that what you're looking at, think of, these are referred to as templates, process templates. And what the V3 does that's different than V2 is it allows you to have, this is what you would perceive as the main product, where you put in the standard kinds of parameters for quantity and size and the machine and the media, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you have all of these add-on processes. Well, in essence, these processes are a product in and by themselves, but they're associated with this particular, what's called a template. So the T is a fancy word for template. So the custom roll print is the default template for this digital print product. But if we pull the downward arrow, there's lots of other items that are in here, okay? Some of those are basically the standard process templates. There's standard ones in there that for banners. This one here is a standard one. And if we look at it, you'll notice there's a thing here that disappeared. If we go back to the custom again, come on. This is the key here. So we're adding, if this not exist in a certain part, their product that you want, it can be added. And that's the mechanism that will be used to put stuff into inventory. So there's standard ones like banners. There's custom flat stock that's pretty standard. There's a custom roll print that does include the added inventory, and that's what this is. Then there are several other templates that over time I have created. And the one that we're going to be looking at is related to some stickers we're gonna produce. So the steps to do that is I open the digital product, and then I'm going to go to the T, the letter T here. And I have two choices. I can take the existing template and I can add a new part to it, or I can simply edit that part. So if I were to create a new template, I would choose Add New, and I'd come down to here where it says New Template Name, and I would put in what name I want. In the naming convention, it's kind of hard to see. I'm going to cancel this and go back to one that I can see a little bit better. This one here gives me a better shot at doing that. So if I use the T, this is the name of this template, and I'm going to create a new one, and it appends the word new to it. And if you were going to create a new one, you would just simply get rid of that probably, and then add whatever else you wanted to add to give that new template its name, okay? Then if you wanted to have that new template that you're creating incorporate some of these add-on processes, you can just simply put a check mark by the design, by lamination, mounting, and add to inventory, which is the focus of what we're doing today, okay? Or you can edit that. So what I'm going to do now is start from here, and I'm going to go in here and use one that I've already got. This is the one that I want. I've just simply named it Custom Roll Print Stickers. Now notice that that template, if we were to edit it, has that check mark on it. So it's always going to be checked. And that means that it would always populate itself. Now I'm going to temporarily turn that off so we can see from scratch what's going on. So if we say we're going to produce 1,000 of these things, and they're small ones, 9 inches by 6 inches. I have no clue why I chose that side, but that's beside the point. Now I'm going to come down here and choose the material that I want to print to. Let's say that I'm going to, let's change this to do 10,000 of them. If I wanted to make sure that that included lamination, then I would simply put a check mark that says, I want to laminate this. I want to laminate it with a cold laminate. And now this is what I wanted you to see. So the price of this is $17,528. And if we look at the parts, we can see that the cost is $4,900, or roughly 49.3 cents a piece. But now, this is the key for putting it into inventory. Now, if I select, I want to add to inventory, now it's going to open up a second child product that's this add to inventory. So it's already said that it's going to add 10,000 stickers. And now I'm going to tell it what kind of stickers. and I'm going to choose 9x6 stickers and a specific item that where I said that it's 9x6 laminated. And now it's telling me that the last time I did this, the unit cost was 4.9 cents and the unit price was $1.75. This time, nothing has changed. No materials were changed. So this is the word estimated is the current pricing. But now notice that the price for the order for this particular line item is 0. Okay. So if we say okay to that, here's the primary guy with the 15,000 for the printing. This is the first child for laminating it, another 1,800. And it's kind of hard to see here, but there's a minus sign in front of that. And that's the sum of these two, which brings it to a net of 0 for this particular order. So if I were doing this for a customer, I would choose it 9x6 stickers with lamination. Oh, come on. And I'm going to go to the totals tab. And let's say that the order we want to have due tomorrow. And I'm going to put 09/27/19 as the PO, which is tomorrow's date. There's no magic to that whatsoever. And notice that the price, the pre-tax price is 0. And now I'm going to save it as an order. Okay. Okay. And now that is order number 1094, and it's into the system. Okay. Now, I'm going to switch now to the V2 database, and I'm going to do the same thing. Linda, sometimes we have trouble flipping back and forth, so watch me close, okay?
All right.
Are you seeing V2 now, Linda?
Doesn't look like anything switched.
Let me go to the Word document, and then we'll come back to it.
Unshare your screen and then share it again. Maybe that'll do it.
That didn't change?
No, we're still seeing V3.
Yeah, I was taking it completely off. I'm going to go to my screen. It's weird because it shows that it's selected here on my end.
Can you reduce it, minimize the screen and then maximize it again?
It shows that it's just close Word. Are you seeing anything at all?
We're seeing V3 where we left off.
Tell you what, I'm going to close V3. I'll come back to it. Anything now? Because V3 is completely gone.
We're still viewing V3, so it must be frozen. So maybe just unshare your screen and then reshare it again?
Yeah.
Okay, now we see V2.
Oh, man. I don't know what I did. I think I found the button. Sorry about that, folks. So in V2, lots of similarities, but there's some subtle differences. Concepts are exactly the same. We're going to create an order to put it in the inventory. We're going to associate a PO so that we can later on pull that out, but we're going to do it inside V2 rather than V3, so we can see where the differences are for those of you that might have V2 on the call. In the V2, any V2 product can be used to add items to inventory. Using that, there's some important things to understand. If you look at, there are a few products, screen printing and composition signs, they have the add to inventory embedded into that product, into those two products. For products like wide format print, that is not, the inventory thing is not added. It's not embedded. So it's separate and distinct. So if we were to do a wide format print, do the same thing here. We're going to do 10,000 of them, and they're going to be 9 by 6. And we're going to choose the machine and the material. And we're going to laminate it. Okay. So at this point, we've duplicated the basic template in Control minus the add to inventory. And the fact that the add to inventory is not embedded in this pricing form, okay? So we have to do it separately. And you do it separately by miscellaneous in this database, going to miscellaneous right here. And then we want to add to finished goods. So we add it, and we're going to add stickers. We're going to add 10,000 of them. And it comes in. I'd have to edit the part here. Let me go back to the other one to see what the part was, what the cost was. Delete that for a second. So the cost is it doesn't look right. A nickel? I don't think so. So it's $1.61, and the cost is $0.80. So now if we go back and do the miscellaneous to add the inventory, and Acquisition, stickers, 10,000. I need to edit the update the cost. $0.80. Okay, now we're in balance. Oh, I've still got the price. There's the 80 cents, and I said update cost. What I didn't do was 1.61 cents. I had chosen a different material. Okay, now I can save that. Go to the totals tab. 9, 20, whoops, 27, 19, and then save it as an order. And now we put that into inventory. I'm going to stay in V3 or V2 for just a bit, so we can walk through quickly pulling, from inventory. So to pull from inventory, I'm going to create a new order for walk-in. Now I'm going to come down to miscellaneous. Oops. Miscellaneous. And I'm going to use finished goods. And I'm going to pull from inventory. The part that I'm going to pull is this one. And I'm going to pull, let's pull 1,000 of them. So it was $1.61 when we did all 10,000, if you remember that. So here it's picked up the unit price of $1.61, and the total price is $1,600 for 1,000 out of the 10,000. So I would simply save that. If that's all I'm doing, then I would save this. I would put in the same PO number, and the date is okay. Now save that as an order. And now that has been pulled from inventory. So if we look at the, that leads me, I'm almost afraid to go back to V3 for time's sake. I'm not going to go back to V3 because of time, but if we look now from a reporting standpoint, I'm going to close this. If we go up to reports and finished inventory, and I want to look at today, and I want to look at 09/27/19. That was the PO that we created. That's the statement of what we did. If we go up to reports, customers and receivables, it's not doing what I want. The first one should be customers and receivables, finished goods.
When you get a chance, Paul, we do have a question.
All right. I changed the parameter here. And I'm going to go to that order. I'm going to change the status to sale. Look at that report one more time, then I'll stop. That is crazy. Show detail date. I just flat don't understand. what I was looking for was where it shows what was in. This isn't the one either. No. Let me stop and pick up the question that we had.
Okay, this question is from David, and David, I've unmuted you if you want to ask your question.
Yeah, Paul, when you add the product for adding the add to finished goods, or finished goods. Can you hear me, guys?
You cut out. Repeat what you said, Dave. I'm sorry.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, when you add the product, at what point do you add that product for adding to finished goods? My question is, if you add it when you create the initial order, is it going to put that inventory, put it into inventory before you actually produce the piece? Or should you wait and add that product until after you've produced it? Otherwise, if you do it up front, it's going to show it as available, and you haven't produced it yet.
But in my mindset, Dave, is that when you're adding it to inventory, you're not producing the goods.
Right. No, but you did the first order was to actually produce the 10,000 stickers.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to put those into inventory, and that's when you added the product for add to finished goods.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you did that when you initially created that order, is it going to show that 10,000 is available, even though you haven't produced them yet? It might be a day or a week before they're actually completed.
And the answer is yes. Okay. And in my mind, what you're doing is you're creating the mechanism to say, we want to be able to, at this pricing, based on these pricing parameters for quantity and size and whatever it was, we're establishing the price and we're establishing the cost.
Right.
We're putting that into inventory. That's not physically putting anything in the inventory because we're not producing anything at that point.
So when does
a week from now, when what?
When does it get put into inventory then?
The physical items never go into inventory. So you're putting in the parameters. So now a week from now, if the guy calls you and says, I need 100 of those, you're going to go to the PO and get the unit price and the unit cost, pull that out, and that's going to be a part in control with the cost and the price, and that's what you're going to produce. But that's when it gets produced.
I guess I'm missing something here. You create the initial order for 10,000.
Yes.
Right? Are you saying you don't produce those?
No, not my mindset. No.
Paul, can I clarify a second?
Yeah, go ahead, Linda.
That order is in WIP when you add the second line item to add to finished goods, so that when that order gets marked a sale and complete, then your inventory goes up that you've added it to finished goods.
That was my question.
That's the answer to the question. It's really in WIP at the time that you create the order. But when it changes status to sale, instead of physically getting a sale to an outside customer, you're now putting it into inventory.
Okay, so if I look at the balance of inventory, it's going to show
at time of sale.
Yeah, while it's in WIP, it's not going to show that 10,000 are available.
That's right.
Okay.
Correct.
I was not tracking with you, Dave. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because of the status, I didn't actually articulate that when we were going through. I just left it in WIP. And that's what I was trying to do in V2, was to make, I did change it to sale, but I can't find the darn report that shows that we pulled 1,000 of those out. And it's only when you pull it out are you actually producing that physical set of images. You're not producing the images when you're putting it into inventory.
Okay. No, I think that's, no, you're producing that 10,000 up front, you're putting it on a shelf, and then a week later, the customer calls and says, I want 100. So then
I think that's a different point. To me, that's warehousing, where you're physically warehousing finished goods, finished items.
What else would you do with finished goods? That's what you do with them. You put them into inventory so you can sell them later.
Linda, help.
I think you do put the 10,000 into inventory because you're producing it on that order. Right. But instead of recording a sale for those, you're recording the sale for those at the time you retrieve the 100 or 200 or whatever.
Right.
So
that's why
I think physically they were produced on the original order for 10,000.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why you zero out the price on the
That's exactly right. Yep.
That's my misunderstanding, Dave, and thanks a lot.
Okay.
Because I was perceiving that they were being produced on an as-needed basis.
No.
At the pre-agreed upon price.
No, because that's the whole point you made up earlier of where the gross margin would be way off, and that's why it's off, is because you're producing 10,000. That's where you're gaining your efficiencies, and that's why you can get the cost to be what it is. If it's at if it's on an as-needed basis, then what you initially said would be correct, and your cost is quite a bit higher.
Yep, you're absolutely dead right, and I apologize for
just want to make sure I understand
missing that piece.
Yep.
Other questions?
No other questions.
I guess bottom line is that if you're not using the finished goods, there's no cost to it. It's there. It's available for everybody, regardless of what database you're in. And in my judgment, when I had my own shop, we were faced with this so frequently that it was always a nightmare to be able to manage and honor what you had committed to. The downside is that if you make the commitment and you build the 10,000, you've encumbered the cost from a general ledger standpoint that you don't have revenue to offset. That's where it gets touchy, from an accounting standpoint, because you've consumed the material, you've consumed the labor, and you've consumed the equipment time, and that's a cost that's going to be reflected in your general ledger.
But you are going to have the asset because you're going to have the inventory.
That's true. That's a true statement. Yes. Interesting discussion. Any other questions?
No other questions.
I just want to take a couple minutes and give everybody an FYI on our topic for October. This is going to be a pair of new topics, one on Tuesday and one on Thursday, and we will be introducing that will be available on the customer web, on the Sirius website, and it's a mechanism for being able to use a tool, spreadsheet tool, to help you determine and estimate what your labor cost per hour is, using actual payroll and general ledger data to do that. And then similarly, so that'll be a Tuesday consideration, discussion, and Thursday is similar, because you have the same question that's often hard to get your hands around, and that is, what is my real cost per hour for all of my equipment, the hourly rate for each of the equipment. And there's been a lot of work. I've gone back and forth with a lot of the series folks, and we have a tool for both the labor rate, it's called a labor rate calculator, and an equipment cost calculator. and that will help you do a more accurate job, we think, of determining or estimating what your hourly labor cost is. The labor cost includes paid to production people, taxes and benefits, and the things that are paid by the employer for everybody in the company. That's the second cost element. And the third cost element is fixed costs. And that's how we determine overhead. So the labor rate, in essence, includes wages for the production people, the overhead costs for fixed costs, and the taxes and benefits. And all of that then is divided by the production work hours. And that data is sensitive, so that the tool it recognizes that sensitivity and gets the right people involved to provide the data. And a similar thing is on the equipment side. It's not as sensitive, but the same kind of concept applies. So that's be our Tuesday and Thursday. I don't know what the actual dates are. Be the same time frame. They'll get posted. The dates will get posted next week one day for those two sessions. But I just want to give everybody a heads up on what's on the agenda for October. Any more questions? Anything else?
Paul, we do have another question, and it's from Dupreet, and I will unmute you.
Okay.
Hi, Paul.
Hi.
I typed in my question, but I can just wanted to see if there's a template. You know how you have for finished goods, if there's a template for us to be able to sell the actual stock that we have in inventory.
Yes.
Is there a standard template in Sirius that we can use? There's been a couple of times when we've done no printing, although it was paper.
Yeah, if I'm understanding it right, we created the normal template using whatever you're going to produce, and then added it to inventory, and those then, as we talked about, get produced and put on a shelf, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But that creates a cost, a part that contains the cost, and it contains the price, the unit price.
Yeah.
And then the second product is the product that pulls that out of inventory. And it's just a single line item in that part that references by you give the association from the purchase order number that was assigned when it was produced, and you use that same purchase order number when you're retrieving it from inventory. And that on this particular data set they're both the same name. In this data set, you're adding it to inventory with this template in V2, and you're pulling it from inventory with this product called finished goods, and that's the same product in V3. It's the same one.
Paul, can I just interrupt a second? Dupreet,
yeah.
Are you asking more about selling raw goods like paper and things like
not
that?
Not finished stock.
Right. So down a little bit further down, there's raw goods sales. See, it's right under quick quotes. Go down the list there.
Okay.
That would be what you would use to just sell your parts that are in your system. You'd mark it up and sell it.
Okay, let me just quickly see. So
would it be roll stock or sheet stock? See, it says raw goods sheet stock material. That would be your product if you were going to sell, say, paper.
But keep in mind, this is the V2 database. Is it the same? I've never looked. Is it the same in V3?
I think, Delpreet, you have V2, right?
I am not sure. How do I tell?
I'm pretty sure you do.
Go up in your system. Go up to setup.
Yeah.
And pricing setup.
System setup.
And all pricing. No, pricing setup. All pricing. and then come over to the first column and choose user constants. And in your V3 or V2, you should see in the second column something that says universal product. No, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You choose that one that says universal product options.
Yeah.
And the database is identified. I got to pull the slider bar down. Oh, here it is. Database version. And towards the top, about the sixth or so item down, it says database version.
Yeah.
And over to the right, you should see 290 or something like that.
Okay, let me see. Dataset version. Oh, it's 289.
Okay, so it's one version earlier than this one.
Okay.
I would be surprised if there's any substantive difference.
Okay.
You should have that raw goods product. It may be inactive to create, so you may have to activate it. Okay. But it should be in there.
Okay, so if I go to product setup, and I should still be able to see it if I choose inactive, select inactive, right?
Correct.
Yes.
Would it pull all the categories of, flat stock and raw materials, or?
It should.
So you need to look at the product first.
You have to look at the product.
Look at product setup in the first column. And then if you want to see if there's any that are inactive, I've down here at the bottom of the screen, see where I'm squirreling the mouse? I'm looking at the show inactive, okay? So all of mine are showing. And if you have that check mark turned off, some of mine would disappear. So make sure that you're looking at the inactive, and then now you're going to see everything.
Raw,
okay, in all of these categories.
So I have 4 roll stock, sheet stock. Oh, good. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna have to play with that. Thank you.
And I can't remember where those were. Raw goods.
Right. I'll try this. And
yeah. First of all, select the category.
Yeah.
Highlight the category, and make sure that the active button is on up there on my screen.
Correct. Yeah.
And then the individual parts or products that you want.
Yeah.
Make sure that they're have the active button on them.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I've got roll and sheet stocks. Now I do have another, the smaller material for indigo. How would I link that inventory to this?
I think you would need to.
You'd probably have to get a consultant to help you add that to that product.
All right, okay. Well, that's a good starting point.
All right, one more minute, and then I'm going to have to run. Any more questions?
We do have another question.
Okay.
And I will unmute David Catchpaw.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Hey there.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I wanted to just go over how to correctly post materials to jobs when I'm initially creating a purchase order. So I've usually gone to, in the item type column, instead of part and posting it to inventory, I have gone to other material. I just want to make sure I'm doing that correctly.
Are you talking about
purchase order, new screen?
You're talking about the topic from Tuesday, where you're ordering using purchase orders to using a purchase order to order raw goods, or are you talking about the context how we're using purchase orders in today's discussion?
I'm not sure. I just want to make sure it's posting to the job.
Are you looking to create the purchase order and link it to an order?
Yes. Or link certain items to an order.
Right. So how do you link the purchase order to the order? That's the question, Paul.
Okay, let me just explore here. If I were doing this as one I did the other day, okay? So if I look at the totals tab in the PO number, that's where you make the association. So when you're using the products and you're adding it to inventory, then you're assigning the PO number for that production for that particular customer, and you're adding it to inventory. And then when you're pulling it from inventory, you're going to use the product that where you pull it, and then you're going to, in the totals UDF, you're going to say, I'm pulling that from this particular PO. So it's in the totals UDF is where the association is made, or putting it into and taking it out of inventory.
David, are you looking for mostly not necessarily finished goods, but just creating a purchase order for materials that you need on a job?
You know, that's what my initial question was.
Because
buying
that would
raw
be
materials,
yeah.
LEDs, and sometimes instead of putting them in directly into inventory, it's a special item that we've bought just for a particular order. And in that case, I just want to make sure that I'm posting it and it's showing up on the estimated cost for that job. You know, and that it eventually gets used towards that job. Does that make sense?
So it's just really ordering on a PO for specific materials that you need on a specific job and guaranteeing that that PO for those materials are linked to that order.
Okay, but are you using the inventory module to manage what the raw goods that you purchase, or are you doing that outside of control?
No, we're trying to use control for all of our inventory.
And including, okay. Then why couldn't you, a custom item, why couldn't you go ahead and use the PO mechanism, add it to inventory, and then when you are going to use it, you're going to use that, the product, whatever product it is that's going to use it, is you're associating that with that line item, and it's going to, then the part usage is what's going to pull it out of inventory when you've used it.
And Paul, right, isn't it reserved? Isn't it reserved in inventory for that order then?
I think you can. I think there is a reserved concept. I've never looked at it that deeply, Linda, but I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I believe that's how it when you place that order or PO and you reference that order, it's reserved for that order.
Yep, that's a good point. Okay. Let me look.
But I don't need to create a new part for every special order item, correct?
No.
Well,
yeah.
Not sure on that. I think you do. If you're going to reserve it for a specific order, you do have to have a part for that to associate that.
I'm in the new PO in a new purchase order screen, and it's this default for order. Here's where you would make the association of this part is that you're purchasing is specifically for the order that would be designated here.
So I've never messed with that field there. I've usually just gone to item type and then select other material instead of a part on the first line.
Yeah, because here you would, if you're creating the PO, You would come in and say, I'm going to either create a part, if it's something that you don't already have and you've never used it before, then you could just say new part and create that part just like you would if you were going up to setup, pricing, setup, all pricing, and say, I'm going to create a new part. Same exact mechanism, okay? So you can create the part from within the PO, and it would be populated right here, and that item would show up. But now now the physical part for that special use item is a part inside control. And then you could associate that. If it's a custom purchase, then you could associate that with the order that you're purchasing it for.
But at that point, at that point it's still a new part, and I could, on a new PO, select that same item again.
It depends on how many you got. If you just bought one and you designated it for this particular order, it's reserved for that order. So unless you,
but that part would be in the system that you can create a new PO for the next.
It'd be in the system, so you could order it again instead of using the PO for a new part. Set up the line item for a specific part that you're repurchasing. That would mean it's an existing part that you're repurchasing.
Now, when do you use that other material item type? When are you supposed to use that?
When you're not inventorying it. It's just going to be you're not inventorying it. Maybe you're ordering, say, grommets that you're not going to have like a whole inventory of.
Yeah, the zillion grommets you buy by the box, you're not going to inventory those.
Okay.
Same thing. We didn't do that with tape, application tape and stuff like that either.
And then on the expense account, do you still select inventory?
And under other? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. You would expense.
Okay.
You would choose the appropriate expense account. Yes.
Let's say grommets, it would be inventory, or I guess.
Those are, you buy them.
Usually expense those.
And you would never be able to know for sure that your inventory count is right because one's getting lost or getting damaged. So no, I wouldn't inventory them.
Okay.
Good question.
All right. Thank you.
Anything else?
No other questions.
All right. Take care, everybody. And I hope to see you next month.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Paul. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, bye-bye.